Welcome back, everyone. We are covering several live cases, and of course, we are also covering the Harvey Weinstein case here in New York. He's been accused of sexual assault by over 80 women. The New York trial involves two named accusers, Miriam Haley and Jessica Mann, and Jessica actually was on the stand today. She's being cross-examined by the defense counsel. There have been several other witnesses who've testified about various types of sexual assaults, from inappropriate touching to actual rape. There you see some of the accusers on your screen. The charges against Weinstein include predatory sexual assault, which means if Weinstein is convicted, he could serve a life sentence. We're also live out in Ohio, and we are covering the Anthony Parton case. He's actually accused of one of the most brutal crimes I've ever seen, stabbing Rachel Anderson. She's a 24-year-old girl on her birthday back in January 2018. In addition to aggravated murder, he is charged with aggravated burglary, aggravated robbery, kidnapping, and rape. He faces a possible sentence of death because we are, of course, in Ohio. Interestingly enough, Parton wanted to represent himself, which ultimately he decided to accept court-appointed counsel, which makes a lot of sense. This case is especially heart-wrenching because the defendant has a very long history of violent crimes. The jury didn't hear that, but the fact is he actually raped a 9-month-old, which is just horrendous. And what's really heart-wrenching is just 6 months after he was released from prison, he ended up killing our victim here. We're also covering a live case out of Texas against police officer Hess, who's accused of shooting and killing Genevieve Dawes in January of 2017. Dawes, who you see here, actually shot Dawes, or rather the police officer Hess, who you saw there, he shot Dawes, and she was in the car with her boyfriend sleeping, and they thought it was a stolen vehicle. Officer Hess and several other police officers approached the car and demanded that they get out. Instead of leaving the car, Dawes tried to drive away, and she collided with the police officer's car. Ultimately, Officer Hess fired 12 shots, killing Dawes. Another police officer shot, and he only hit the car. He only shot once. The boyfriend, who was also in the car, wasn't shot, but he was injured by some broken glass from the window. Hess was charged with aggravated assault by a public servant because, of course, as a police officer, he's a public servant, and that carries a possible sentence of 5 to 99 years. Now we're going to go back to the Parton case, and we have a crime scene unit analyst who is on the stand, and he's being examined as we speak. Let's go live.
Evidence that tied Anthony Parton to that murder scene?
No.
I believe you indicated for these folks that there were no signs of forced entry. Is that correct?
Into the crime scene, the original scene? No, I didn't see any signs of forced entry.
I'm sorry, I should have clarified.
That's okay.
Okay. And you found several items there. You found computers, one computer anyway, one laptop.
Yes.
And we saw from the photographs there was several items on the table. Is that correct?
Yes.
Could you tell if, oh, strike that. Was Rachel Anderson's purse still there?
I believe it's her purse. I had her identification there.
And I believe you indicated that you swabbed the doorknobs on the inside and out, back and front.
Just the back.
Just the back?
Just the rear door, yes.
Why you didn't do front?
Again, because I was advised that police officers came to check welfare checks, family members have. There have been a lot of people in and out of there. People weren't using gloves. So there would have been a host of DNA sources on both of those doors. I was told that the back door, nobody went through that, and it was locked. So it seemed like a more viable DNA location for us.
If, sometimes you know that when you do certain swabbing or you putting down certain tape and fingerprints and stuff, sometimes you may not, or you might think that the chances of you getting some of evidence you value is slim, right?
Yes,
But sometimes you do it anyway, right?
yes.
Did you do anything with what was on that table, like the scales or the pipes or anything of that nature?
The pipe was collected, the scales were not.
Okay. Why weren't the scales collected?
Things like pipes and cigarette butts are a great DNA source because of saliva. Scales, they could have people could have minimal contact with. Again, I'm evaluating what I think has the most DNA on it. Scale would not be something that I would anticipate that.
Okay. And you wouldn't think that would be important in the case anyway. You just take a picture of it and preserve it. Is that correct?
Yeah, in this case, I think photos sufficed.
Detective Durst, let me ask you about this lock and the locking of that apartment. So you may be able to explain to this jury how the locks worked from the inside out.
Okay.
So was there a mechanism on those locks on the inside that you could lock it?
Yes, from the inside, yes.
Okay, now, what about from the outside?
I believe it required a key.
So in order to lock that apartment from the outside, you needed a key.
I believe so, yes.
You know how some of the doors you go to and they got a lock on the inside, you push the lock, you go outside, and the door's locked?
Yes,
It wasn't that situation here, was it?
correct. It was not.
When you were looking at the closet upstairs and you was shown where damage was done to the lock on the closet door, is that a lock?
No.
Or was that just the handle, what do you call that? The doorknob?
Yeah, it was just a doorknob.
There seemed to be, well, let me ask you, did there seem to be a piece missing on the side of it?
Of the knob or what?
You know what a knob, let me see, I'm gonna get you a picture. Let me find my notes. Could I have A137? And you know what? Judge, can you allow me, can I use this?
Yes, you may. Give me a sec.
Agent Hirsch, you've seen this, what's been marked for identification purposes as State Exhibit A137.
Yes.
And that's the mechanism I'm referring to. You have your pointer.
Yep.
Now, does there appear to be a piece missing from there?
Are you referring to this metal plate that's typically inset in the door?
Exactly. Absolutely.
Yeah, there's not one there.
All right, and did you find that?
I don't believe I was looking for it, but no, I did not find it.
You were also shown members of the jury a piece of the top of the door that was broke off. Did you ever find that? Do I need to show you so
No,
you know?
I know what you're talking about. No, because I don't believe I was looking for it.
Well, it would have been there, wouldn't it? It wouldn't be something you have to look for. It's right there. Is it there or it wasn't, right?
I don't know.
Okay.
Well, you just saw there the defense actually cross-examining Dirks. He's this crime scene unit specialist. And I've got to say, I love this defense attorney. I actually don't like the defendant, but the attorney is very, loud and he's making statements for his client. Gilbert, let me know what you think about him. We were having a little conversation, and he's definitely got a certain style about him.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, and it's a style that can be risky at times, but one that a lot of attorneys go with. If the jury likes you, they'll like your client. And in this case, the defense attorney is trying to illustrate he's just a regular, everyday, common sense kind of guy. And the questions that he's asking, this very important ballistics expert who collects things and has all this experience, he's just asking him what seem to be very simple, everyday questions that demonstrate this evidence was not collected properly, and it was biased from the very beginning. And the method that he's using is a very simple one I happen to be a fan of, although at the end of the trial, I think there's a mountain of evidence against Mr. Pardon.
Well, you make some good points. He has a very interesting style. And Ashley, let me ask you this question. Even though the defense attorney has a great style, is he making any points here?
Well, I mean, I have to agree with the fact that I love his style too, and I myself have employed this particular tactic on many cross examinations. And you're trying to build up to say, hey, you didn't do this. He's pointing out the little the faceplate on the side of the door. Some doors don't even have that little metal faceplate. Whether or not it really matters for the case, that's not the point he's making. The point he's making is that hopefully the jury thinks, okay, if there are trained detectives in this home looking through this crime scene, if they didn't pick up on items X, Y, and Z, then maybe we can't really trust evidence A, B, and C that they also picked up. So I like the tactic. However, I will say this agent is not giving him as much pushback as a lot of witnesses and police officers do. I think this agent's been on the stand a few times, and he knows, hey, you readily admit, nope, I didn't think I was looking for it, didn't see it, wasn't there, and isn't really waffling on him, because if he had done anything other than that, I guarantee you this defense attorney during closing would be saying, and you saw how he couldn't answer my question, and you saw how he got flustered about that, and you kind of get the witness riled up. But I don't think that's going to happen here. But I have to say, I do like his style simply because you're right. I mean, he's coming off very personable, and it is very difficult to translate that personability to this defendant who has so many violent crimes in his history.
Yes, Ashley, we are nodding with you in full agreement. Even though the defense attorney is a great guy, his defendant is one of the worst. Let's take a quick break, but don't go anywhere. We'll come back live just after this.
We farm about 3,500 acres. There's pipelines everywhere. The contractor working on my property did not have the lines located before he began work, and it resulted on a strike on a natural gas pipeline. Fortunately, no one was hurt, but it could have been much worse. Calling 811 or visiting clickbeforeyoudig.com in the U.S. only takes minutes to do, and it can save your life.
Daniel Villegas, not guilty of...
I'm Aaron Keller. Join me for the Daily Debrief. It's your chance to catch the hottest moments of the biggest cases we cover here on the Law and Crime Network. Plus, the day's top legal stories coast to coast.
I didn't really think at that moment I was going to pull that trigger.
She did it!
And his body just went boom.
An Ohio woman took the stand in her own defense today on charges she murdered her husband. Spacey faces one charge of indecent assault and battery on a person over 14.
Guilty.
I'll never see him again.
I've wanted this for quite a while.
Do you need a break, Mr. Brown?
I'll be all right. Just give me a minute.
An admitted meth bombie accused of murdering her son through neglect.
Did you meet up with Cheyenne and have sex with her?
Yes.
Why do you think prosecutors put in that evidence of the mother starting a relationship with the drug buddy?
Did she have a motive to maybe hide this baby?
My dad loved Mike.
If you missed anything during our live trial coverage, we bring it to you again on the Daily Debrief. It's your chance to get caught up in your favorite cases, Monday through Friday, live from 5 to 5:30, right here on Law and Crime.
Tonight on the Daily Debrief.
Many medicines used to treat colds and flu contain acetaminophen, a pain reliever and fever reducer found in hundreds of over-the-counter and prescription medicines. But taking too much or more than one medication containing acetaminophen per day can damage your liver. So always read the label and don't take acetaminophen if you drink 3 or more alcoholic drinks every day. To learn more, visit fda.gov/OTC pain info. A message from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services Food and Drug Administration.
Most of us like to be out in the sun. That's why sunscreen and other safety measures are key to protecting your skin from aging and cancer. The FDA recommends using a sunscreen with an SPF of 15 or higher. Also, look for broad spectrum on the label. That means both harmful ultraviolet A and B rays are blocked. Remember, SPF plus broad spectrum equal healthy fun in the sun. Visit www.fda.gov/sunscreen for more information. A message from the U.S. Food and Drug Administration.
Welcome back. We are following the Anthony Pardon case out in Ohio, and it's live. Let's go back where we are watching this crime scene unit specialist on the stand. Let's go live.
When you were upstairs, you didn't touch any of those dressers or anything, did you?
To search them, yes.
When you went up there, were they all closed?
Yes, I believe so.
When you went and did your first pictures, walked the scene before you start doing the other stuff, all the dresser drawers had been closed. Well, none of those open, were they?
As I recall, I believe they were all closed, yes.
And you took pictures of it before you started moving stuff around, right?
Correct.
You didn't notice any blood on that knife that you found in upstairs little nightstand next to the bed closet? You didn't notice no blood in there, did you?
No.
What about on that little razor knife?
No.
No hair either?
No.
I'm just checking over my notes, Sean. Give me that.
Oh, no, take your time.
I think you indicated that one of the reasons that you and, I mean, you speak for yourself, but other agents, that you wear gloves is to prevent contamination?
Yes.
Is that to prevent you transferring DNA to any items?
Yes.
So items can be, you can actually transfer your DNA by just touching those items?
Yes.
Your Honor, could I have 1 minute?
You may.
All right, so we have been listening to Durst. He's this crime scene unit specialist. He's been talking about all the things that he's collected. We have this great defense attorney. He's trying to make some points here, Gilbert. I'm not really sure he's making a difference. What do you think the jury is feeling right now and thinking right now?
Yeah, well, that's actually hard to guess. I mean, on the one end, every homicide, you have the loss of a life. And you have the relatives that are sitting there in the audience. And especially in a case like this, someone was murdered on their birthday in the most gruesome and grisly fashion. We're talking about the indictment for burglary and rape, being tied up, and a knife stuck in your back of the neck. And the jury's heard all of this. And so to determine what they're thinking, if they've put that out of their minds and actually are examining carefully, as the defense attorney is encouraging them to, the lack of procedure that's been taken. And whether or not this evidence was collected properly, that we won't know, but I think the defense attorney is doing an excellent job.
That's a good point. Let's see what else he can do. Let's go back live and see what happens in the pardon case.
House or phone or car?
No.
Or any evidence?
No.
What about Tina Kennedy's house or car? Anything like that?
Nope.
You weren't asked to search next door?
No, sir.
Just Anthony Pardon and the cars from Rachel and him, is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you very much, Agent Durst. Appreciate it.
Sure.
Good to see you again. Thank you for having me, brother.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Redirect.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just a couple questions. Agent Durst, you stated you found a purse there at the first scene.
Yes, ma'am.
But did you find any credit or debit cards in that purse?
No.
When you searched that apartment, did you ever find keys attached to a lanyard?
No.
Mr. Thomas asked you about dusting the back door. You stated there were no quality prints and that you didn't take a picture. Why didn't you take a picture?
There were no prints developed at all. The reason I took photographs of the front door is because we developed them and I wanted to be able to illustrate where on the door they were located. So I'm not going to take a picture of something that doesn't exist. The door was dusted, no prints were located.
And then Mr. Thomas was asking you some questions about touch DNA. And you stated it was situational. When you're talking about situational, is the force used to touch an object? Could that be part of the situation?
It can be, yes.
What about the time spent touching the object? Could that affect the touch DNA?
Yes, very much so.
Okay, one moment.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Van Coolen. Recross.
Thank you, Agent Durst.
Sure.
Nothing further.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Okay, you can step down.
Thanks, Judge.
Not to discuss your testimony with anyone while this case is still pending.
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. Counsel, please approach.
All right, you see that witness is leaving the stand. Ashley, I'm going to ask you a very hard question. Redirect, recross, it's always very hard. On redirect here, she was trying to ask about the touch DNA. What points do you think she made or could have made? I mean, what was the main point with this witness as far as the prosecution is concerned?
I mean, I think the prosecution is trying to dissuade the jury from falling for what we call the CSI effect, basically to say to them, hey, look, this agent was not asked to look at every single scene. They weren't asked to interview or fingerprint every single human being that might be in the tri-state area. They went for evidence that they thought was relevant and that they thought could be most helpful for this case. So don't be fooled by what the defense is trying to get you to look at and all the things that they didn't get, but rather try and focus on all the things that they did get. So I think that's what the prosecution was trying to get to there.
That makes a lot of sense. We have about 30 seconds. Gilbert, you agreed? You think the prosecution is making points here?
I think they do. I think that they rehabilitated their witness, definitely to a degree. It is very common, a lot of us as defense attorneys, when we have an extremely difficult case, we try to throw everything in the kitchen sink in to say to the jury, they should have investigated all possible aspects. But like the reasonable doubt charge says, it's not about any doubt, but a doubt to which you can assign a reason. For the detective, he's saying there's a reason why I took what I took and left what I left.
Yeah, let's see if we can have any reasonable doubt in this case. So far, based on everything the prosecution has said, it doesn't seem to be any doubt, but the jury's supposed to make sure they have an open mind. Let's take a break, and when we come back, we'll be live in the Anthony Pardon case.
What would happen if I had to pick up the phone, call 911 for one of my family members or one of my neighbors? What would I do if no one was on the other end to respond? What if there was no 911? So you can be a part of the solution.
Anybody can be a firefighter. Male, female, younger, older.
We have school teachers. We have leaders in business.
Is me, you, anyone that wants to be.
There is no typical firefighter.
Everybody can make something, because I think everyone has a spark of creativity, and the reason that I have to keep making is because I don't think my life would be as fulfilling without it. If you make things yourself, that means you're not cowering in fear. You're out there taking chances. That, I think, is my way of saying I love you to the world. All right, now I want to hear why you make.
Share your own Why I Make story today. Visit whyimake.org.
Can I give you a hand?
Interstate moving is much more complicated than just moving within your city or town.
Anyone can fall victim to moving fraud.
Do not sign a contract without knowing who you're dealing with.
Do the research on the company that's physically doing your moving.
Do as much diligence as you can and document as well as you can.
Do Better Business Bureau searches. I would Google the company online.
And the best place to find information is through the U.S. Department of Transportation.
Learn how to protect your belongings. Visit protectyourmove.gov.
All across the country, people are coming together to speed up what we can learn about health. The All of Us Research Program is calling on 1 million people to join us as we try to change the future of health. For your family, for future generations, for all of us. Visit joinallofus.org and find out how you can become 1 in a million.
Oh, hi. I suppose you're wondering what an A-list celebrity like me is doing in a place like this. You must know, I'm saving the world. Oh, hi, Beth. Yep, saving the world again. Did you know that 40% of all the food produced in the United States is thrown away? That means everything that went into that food, the pesticides, the water, the land, was all for nothing. Just look at this perfectly good food thrown in the trash. The pizza with extra Cheerios, these goldfish and Band-Aid tacos. And just look at this perfect trash burger. This pasta dog looks delicious.
You don't have to dumpster dive like Ed Begley Jr. to save the planet. Fight food waste by shopping smart and using what you buy before it gets trashed.
That's way better. Ooh, arugula.
Do your part and find out other world-saving tips at betterthaned.org.
Welcome back, everyone. We are very lucky to have Brian Buckmeyer back in the studio, and he's going to tell us what happened with the Weinstein trial today. He was in court. And Brian, I guess the first thing I have to ask you is what happened? Was there more cross-examination of Jessica Mann? Exactly what did you see today?
All right, so for the most part today, we got to see Lauren Young, who is not a complainant or a victim in this case. She's actually a Molyneux witness. She talked about an incident between her and Harvey Weinstein where she was forced into a bathroom with another young lady. Now, the story goes that they went downstairs in the lobby. They were talking about one of her scripts. Harvey, not really paying attention, said, let's go back upstairs. When they did that, Harvey, Lauren, and then Claudia Salinas walked up into the room. Now, when Harvey walked in, shortly behind him was this witness who testified, Lauren Young, and she says that Claudia had closed the door behind her. It's at that point in time that she said Harvey took off his clothes faster than she's ever seen anyone take their clothes off. She was there in the bathroom, he's in the shower rinsing himself off, and as she's attempting to leave, he blocks her way in. It was very riveting. Now, after that, she says that Harvey pushes her up against the sink. She turns around as he's trying to touch her. He unzips her dress, tries to touch her. She turns back around. He grabs her right chest. And while he's doing that, sorry to say, she's saying that he started masturbating, that he attempted to try to touch her vagina, and that afterwards, throwing his hands away, she finally got away. Now, she said that she tried to get out of the room, but some of that kind of got lost in the cross-examination. On direct, she said that she couldn't get to the door because Harvey was blocking her. On cross-examination, the defense was able to get out that there were some discrepancies in the stories as to how she laid out how she's going to get out and how she got into the bathroom.
You know what, Brian, one of the things I am really wondering, if you had a chance to look at the jury, how they are responding to these types of questions and these types of answers, the very graphic detail. We know that there are 7 men and 5 women on the jury. Are you noticing that they are having a different type of reaction to these questions?
I mean, I think they have seen it all at this point. And in previous testimony, they got to see photos taken from the DA's office of Harvey Weinstein naked. So I think after you've seen that, you've kind of seen it all. They did get to see an artist rendition by this witness, Lauren Young, of her drawing out what Harvey Weinstein looks like naked. And again, you hear the same story of lots of rolls, a penis, a lack of testicles. When I saw them look at that photo, very stoic, very serious, a lot of the men kind of shrugged it off. Some of the women grimaced. But I think the more important part about the jury is not necessarily the gender or the race, but actually the age. I look at that jury and I see most of them in their mid to late 30s, if not older. And I think for a case where the prosecution is trying to say, hey, that precondition that you have as to what a rape victim does and what it looks like, that's something you have to change. I think it's going to be hard to convince some of the older jurors of that.
I think you're right, Brian. Let me ask you this. What should we expect for tomorrow? Will we have more witnesses on the stand? Do we think Weinstein himself will get on the stand?
So luckily enough, I've had the opportunity to speak a little bit with Arthur and some of the other court officers and attorneys in the room, and they were surprised that Jessica Mann, there was no rebuttal to the cross-examination. So it seems like this case is moving along quite quickly. I would anticipate that the prosecution is going to end their case in chief sometime either today or tomorrow, and then we'll see whether or not the defense is going to put on a case. Now, the defense has made multiple arguments about missing evidence, Brady violations, that being exculpatory information that should have been turned over, and a lot of missing emails, cell phone contacts, and text messages that might lay groundwork for other witnesses. Whether or not that's just smoke and mirrors and asking for a mistrial, I'm not sure, but I think they will definitely put on at least a bit of a case, so we might see this case stretch on to the rest of the week.
Brian, thank you so much. We're very lucky to have you in that courtroom. Since we can't be live in there, it's great to have you there. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much.
All right, now we're going to turn back live to the pardon case. Remember, this is the individual who raped and killed a 24-year-old on her birthday. We're going to go to the prosecution, actually. Let's see what they had to say during the opening.
There was a shroud kind of thing put over her head as she's hogtied in the closet, across the top of the door of the closet, and around the doorknob of the closet is wrapped these cables so that she can be asphyxiated around the neck by these cords, as the coroner will tell you. Not only that, she is stabbed the base of her skull right back here by what is later recovered, a steak knife. She had a set of steak knives in her kitchen, and one was recovered with blood and hair on it. And you'll see the pictures of those wounds. And once again, using Mr. Pardon's phone, guess what? Her purse is dumped upside down on the floor in her living room. It appears there's a struggle upstairs. There is male DNA found under her fingernails. They do fingernail scrapings and can determine it's male DNA, but there's not a sufficient quantity to test it. The police, as they are called to the scene that morning, John Kennedy goes in and more closely inspects the premises and finds her body in the closet. And the police are called, and thereafter the crime scene search unit arrives. BCI is called. They process the scene by taking hundreds of photographs that you'll see. They don't know who may have committed this crime. They say, well, what was taken? Well, there was an orange credit card belonging to Rachel that was taken. And I want to get this time right, at 9:49 p.m., the defendant's phone is in the apartment from 7:59 to 9:25. At 9:49 p.m., and between 9:49 and 11:09, and those are precise numbers because when you go with a credit card to an ATM machine and try and take out money, that logs it. And so Rachel's credit card is attempted to be used at 7 different locations, not far from her apartment, and frankly not far from where the defendant was living at the time. And some video stills are taken from the attempted use of the credit card. And a man by the name of Anthony Sleets panhandles outside of one of these locations. And Mr. Sleets is identified in one of these surveillance photos within an hour after the defendant left the apartment building. And over a period of several days, that credit card was used or attempted to be used 15 different times at different locations across the city. And the defendant's phone or his sister were using that credit card or attempting to use that credit card.
That was the prosecutor in the Pardon case. Now let's take a look. He was very detailed. Let's see how detailed or not detailed the defense is going to be. Here's his opening.
So you see what happened out here, and everybody knows as a human being, you're going to feel something. But you can't base your decision on how you view the evidence because of what happened to her. You can't base it on bias. Why? Because when you're filling in pieces of a puzzle, if you already are filling in these pieces based on the bias, you are going to supply the missing pieces for the state line. If you're looking at this and say, well, you know what, no, this should, you are not going to hold the state to their burden. You are going to start filling in pieces. When pieces are missing, they got to show you a picture of an ocean with a boat, and all you see is blue, and you feel a certain way, you'll fill in that boat. The state of Ohio, in the puzzle that they present to you, have an obligation to fill in every piece of the puzzle. Not for you to come in and be a detective and solve anything. You don't have to solve nothing. If they don't present this picture to you complete, then you must acquit. It's not connecting no dots and dots and dots. If you're not convinced that this puzzle is complete, you took an oath that you would acquit. This is not a one-way street. This is going to be a two-way street. It can only be a two-way street if you're willing to listen, and as you all took an oath, not make up your mind prematurely. How many people will conclude after opening statement that my client is guilty? And you haven't heard not one piece of evidence. Not one. Your job is to keep an open mind. Because somebody say they're an expert, does that mean they're an expert? There are going to be gaps that need to be filled. And the state of Ohio has to fill them. I'm not going to go over each and every testimony here now. But you promise you will be open-minded and listen carefully to the testimony as is given from the witness stand. Listen very carefully to each witness and what they have to say. What was going on the night before, what was going on Sunday, what was going on Monday. Look at the evidence that actually pertains to every part. Not evidence that the state wants you to jump into. Well, we want you to assume. This is not an assumption case. This is proof beyond a reasonable doubt case. You don't have to solve anything. If the state doesn't convince you of each and every element that Mr. O'Brien talked about pertaining to these crimes, even though it might be sad and may be hard, you said you could do it, you have to acquit.
Can I have a witness? I feel like I am in church. I am from Birmingham, Alabama originally, and my southern accent is coming back because that defense attorney really took us to church. Let me ask you, Gilbert, what do you think? We talked about his style. I saw you laughing when we were watching him. What came over you?
Absolutely. I mean, it's one of those things you can't beat. You have to see it to believe it. The charisma that he has, the bond he begins to establish with the jury. He's taking classic principles all of us use. Don't sympathize because of the nature of the crime, analyze the witnesses, things that a lot of us, when we're trying to communicate with the jury, we want them to feel it in a very simplistic manner. And I think he does a very effective job of actually emotionally connecting with the jury. Now, of course, the classic problem many people face, including him, is the mountain of evidence is going to come no matter what. But I thought it was an incredible opening.
I couldn't agree. Ashley, let me ask you this question. You know, I thought he was very charismatic. He really was powerful. Like I said, I felt like I was in church. And Aaron Keller from our show always says it was a non-opening opening, meaning there were no facts, there were no details. But I do think that he did the best he could possibly do without having any facts on his side. Do you agree?
I mean, he's working with some he's got an uphill case, you know, I mean, that's saying the least. What I really liked about his opening argument, and that's what I'm going to call it, is that analogy that he painted with making the picture, and if they're just showing you blue, if you have bias, you're going to insert the boat. I thought that was great. That was a really wonderful way to go. What I don't like is that once you've started at a level 10, there's nowhere else to go. And oftentimes as attorneys, we do this when we know that the evidence and the law is not going to back us up and bear this out during trial. And I think, you know, this defense attorney is certainly well seasoned. He knows what he's doing, and he has studied this case. I'm sure he knows exactly what's coming down the pipeline for this particular client, and it's not always a good thing.
Ashley, as always, you make some excellent points. We are going to take a break, and we'll be right back after this.
I'm Dan Abrams, and this is the Law and Crime Network.
Hey everybody, I'm Jesse Weber, and this is Legal News You Can Use. So you ever watch a soap opera and the issue comes up about the wealthy patriarch not leaving anything in his will to his wife or kids? Well, if you haven't, then clearly you're watching quality television like me, but it gets you thinking. Can you disinherit your spouse or children? Let's start with the kids. In almost all states, you don't have to leave your adult children anything. It's pretty surprising, right? However, this doesn't mean all kids. You usually can't disinherit minor children, and in Louisiana, you not only can't disinherit those under 23, but also those who don't have the mental capacity to take care of themselves. Oh, and of course, this also doesn't include if a court orders you to leave them something, like, say, in a divorce. But if you really want to disinherit your adult children, and remember, don't make that decision lightly, you'll have to make sure you have a will or some kind of estate plan, because if you don't, and you don't have a surviving spouse, guess what? Generally, the law says your stuff is going to your kids. Now, what about your wife or husband? Well, this is where it gets tricky. Most states say you can't intentionally disinherit your spouse unless he or she agrees, usually in a pre- or post-nuptial agreement. Okay, then you're asking, what is your other half entitled to? Depends on the state. Some look at how long you're married, if you had children together, and if there are any assets that need to be probated. Look, this can get complicated and messy, so as with everything, consult with an attorney first. For more legal news you can use, go to lawandcrime.com.
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you. Your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. A public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Welcome back, everyone. We have been following the pardon case out in Ohio. Let's go back now and look at some of the previous testimony. Lisa Richardson is the apartment manager where the victim lived. Let's go back and hear her testimony.
Looking for Ms. Anderson, did you report back to the interested employer and the police that you didn't find her in there?
I did.
What did you do at that point as the landlord, property manager for the premises?
I just locked the doors back and went back into the office.
You know, the door was locked when you went over there.
It was, yes.
And you had a key that allowed you to enter as the landlord, correct?
Yes.
And when you left after not finding Rachel Anderson there, you locked the door again?
I did.
And when you went back to your office, as far as you know, did the man from her job, did he leave or did he stay?
Honestly, I don't know if he left or if he stayed.
Okay. Did the police come back another time that Monday?
They did because there still was concern about her being in there and me not checking everything.
And so what happened? Tell the jury.
I talked to Sean Griggs and I told him that I didn't see anything in the apartment. It was a candle that was blown, but I did blow it out. He just asked me, did I check the closets? And I explained to him, no, I didn't check any closets. And he just asked that I would. So then at that point, me and the police officers, we went back over.
Was there another man, John Kennedy, that had arrived at the scene by that time?
I don't know his name, but she did have a friend that arrived, yes.
Okay. And Did you and that friend go into apartment B, Rachel's apartment?
We did. I opened the door and he went in.
He went in. Did you go in with him?
I stood in the living room, yes. He went upstairs and he looked around, and then you just heard him scream. And then he came back downstairs and we all just walked outside, and then the police officers came in.
Did you or he in your presence advise the police what he had found?
He did, yes.
And did the police then go into the premises?
Yes, they did.
All right, so that was the apartment manager. We're going to go to John Kennedy. She mentioned him in her testimony. Let's hear what he said.
The closet door in Rachel's bedroom, is that appear as you saw it that day on January 29th?
That's only a slight representation of what I saw that day, yes.
If you see coming from the door handle of that closet, it appears to be a white item going down towards the floor. Did you notice that when you were there?
Yes, whenever I grabbed the outside of the door handle and I pulled the first time, I noticed that there, and I pulled by the door and the cable because it was so tense on the inside.
From your observations, did it appear Rachel was deceased at this time?
At first, I wasn't fully aware, and I tried to help her, but after that time I realized that she was dead.
Based on your contact with Rachel, were you familiar with her car?
Yes.
And when you arrived there, did you find her car parked in front of her house or somewhere else?
It was on the side of the property, which is completely out of the ordinary.
From your past experience, would she typically park in front of the house or in the location you found it that
She
day?
parked right in front of that house. She did not trust that place. So she wanted to be as close to the door as possible.
Now, on the night of her birthday party out at your apartment, you mentioned buying provisions for the party. Most of the people there were in their early, mid-20s, is that correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
And was marijuana or weed present at the party, and did most of the people there smoke marijuana that
Yes, sir.
And within Rachel's apartment, did she keep a small jar of marijuana to your knowledge?
Yes, sir, definitely.
And were you familiar with where she kept that?
Yes, sir.
And did you see it there on the 29th when you were there and found her body?
No, I did not.
That was missing?
Yes, sir, it was. It was missing from the location that it's always at.
Okay, so that was the friend. He found the body. He went in with the apartment manager. Actually, let me ask you this. Maybe it's me, but I always wonder about the person who found the body. The apartment manager didn't go upstairs. She could have found the body. Is it just me, or do you think, I don't know, was he at all involved?
I mean, I'd be very surprised if the police didn't have this man as a suspect from the very get-go. You know, there's the old saying, you never want to be a jogger on, you know, like Law and Order, because you're always going to be the person that finds the body. And here I got to tell you, you know, he had a relationship with the victim. He knew her. You know, there's probably a lot more suspicion surrounding somebody that she knew, because it's not very typical to hear of these crimes where somebody just gets kidnapped by a stranger and is brutalized in the way that this poor woman was. You know, usually, unfortunately, it's someone that knows the victim. So I would be shocked if this particular witness that's speaking wasn't initially suspected by the police and then somehow was cleared by some form of evidence. We may not know what that is yet.
I agree with you. We only have about, 60 more seconds left. What do you think as far as reasonable doubt? As we all know, there has to be reasonable doubt. Was this individual enough to cast some reasonable doubt as far as the prosecution's theory is concerned, as far as pardon's concerned?
I mean, I don't think it is. I think the individual actually puts a vivid picture together for the jury, and because everything connects. And I think that he's the beginning of the connecting, and I think that this, again, is going to be a very rough case for the defense to try to insert reasonable doubt.
All right, I think that makes a lot of sense. We'll see what actually happens when the pardon case resumes, and whether or not there's enough to establish some reasonable doubt, or whether or not all of this DNA evidence is going to add up to pardon. So stay tuned, everyone. We are really lucky to have Aaron Keller coming on later, and we want you to stay tuned and watch Law and Crime.
Hey everyone, I'm Jesse Weber, and this is Legal News You Can Use. Today's topic, what happens if you don't pay your credit card bill? Let me just say, don't put yourself in this position, all right? It's not one you want to be in. First, the credit card company will start to contact you after your first missed payment, usually when you're 30 days late. Now you may think, oh, I'll just ignore them. Well, after 60 days without paying, your interest rate could skyrocket. I'm talking doubling or even almost tripling. You also probably have to pay a late fee and your credit score could go down. So are we having fun now? Well, it gets worse. After 90 days of non-payment, the credit card company could terminate your account and then sell your debt to a collection agency. In some states, you could then be sued, which could result in a garnishing of your wages and or a lien placed on your bank accounts or property. I told you, not good. Here's a tip. If you're gonna have trouble paying, get in front of this. Don't ignore the credit card company or debt collection agency. Communicate with them and be honest. You may be able to work out alternative payment plans, and in some cases, it may be wise to retain an attorney. Go to lawandcrime.com for more legal news you can use.
If you're talking, they will hear you.
We all want our kids to grow up safe and healthy, so we show them how. And we tell them with honest conversations that let them know what we expect. Not just one time, but every chance we get. That's especially important when it comes to alcohol and other drugs. Kids not only need to know the dangers and how to avoid them, they need to hear it often from you. And when it comes to pain medications, opioids, they need to know that they should never be taken without a prescription and never shared with friends or family. It's dangerous and illegal. So talk with your kids and guide them through the challenges of growing up safe and healthy. Because when you talk, they hear you. For more information about talking with your kids about underage use of alcohol and other drugs, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
So talk, they hear you. You can do it if you try.
Can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me something. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, no thanks, not my thing.
Mom.
I promise you, your real friends won't care. Deal?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. A public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
A brain aneurysm can strike you when you least expect it, plunging your entire world into darkness. But if you know the warning signs, you're much more likely to survive. If you suddenly experience the worst headache of your life or sharp, sudden pain behind your eyes, do not ignore it. Please seek immediate emergency attention. It's time to shed some light on brain aneurysms. You gotta know the information.
The Lisa Colagrassi Foundation, lisafoundation.org.